When we think of US presidents, names like Washington, Lincoln, or Kennedy usually come to mind. But what about the others, the ones history books barely mention, the so called forgotten presidents? They may not have monuments or movies made about them, but their decisions shape the America we live in today. From laying the foundation of civil rights to setting up the modern economy to quietly changing the role of government forever. These overlooked leaders had massive influence, even if history didn't give them the spotlight. In this video, we're uncovering the hidden legacy of America's forgotten presidents and revealing how their leadership still echoes through modern day politics, law, and society. You might just discover that the presidents you never heard of were the ones who made all the difference. Let's dive in. When most Americans think about US presidents, a few legendary names always come to mind. George Washington, the founding father. Abraham Lincoln, the president who preserved the Union and ended slavery. Franklin D. Roosevelt, who guided the nation through the Great Depression and World War II. And John F. Kennedy, remembered as much for his charisma as his tragic end. But the reality is, the United States has had 46 presidents, and most people could probably name only 10 of them. What about the rest? Who were they? What did they do? Did they simply sit in the Oval Office for 4 years and do nothing of importance? The answer might surprise you. There's a group of leaders history has quietly pushed aside, men who once held the highest office in the land, who made major decisions, signed crucial legislation, shaped the country's growth and identity, and yet their names rarely appear in textbooks, documentaries, or pop culture. These are what we call the forgotten presidents. They were real leaders, many of them made lasting contributions, but over time their names faded from memory. They are the silent architects of modern America, men whose impact is felt even if their stories are not widely known. Now, you may ask, why were they forgotten? There are many reasons. Some served during calm periods with no major wars or crises to define their legacy. Others followed presidents who were far more popular or powerful and simply got lost in their shadows. A few came to office unexpectedly after a death or assassination and didn't serve long enough to make a major public impression. Some weren't charismatic or politically aggressive. They didn't have big personalities or dramatic speeches to be remembered by. And unfortunately, in the world of history, personality often outshines policy. But forgotten does not mean unimportant. In fact, many of these presidents helped shape key aspects of the America we live in today. They introduced reforms that changed how the government works. They expanded the country's territory. They created policies that still influence the economy, civil rights, and public services. In some cases, their decisions had long-term consequences that weren't fully understood until decades later. Take James K. Polk, for example. Most people would struggle to recognize his name, yet under his presidency, the US expanded its territory more than under any other president. The borders of modern America, especially the western states like California and Arizona, exist in large part because of decisions Polk made. He promised to serve only one term, and he kept that promise. But in those 4 years, he reshaped the map of the nation. Or consider Rutherford B. Hayes. He came to office after one of the most disputed elections in US history. He is rarely remembered, yet his presidency marked the end of Reconstruction, a major turning point in the post-Civil War era that affected race relations and Southern politics for more than a century. Hayes also pushed for civil service reform and clean government, even when it cost him political support. Then there's Chester A. Arthur, a name that sounds like it belongs more in a classroom history quiz than in a meaningful conversation about leadership. Yet Arthur was the one who reformed the entire civil service system. Before him, government jobs were handed out based on loyalty and favors, the infamous spoils system. Arthur, despite being a party insider himself, shocked everyone by cleaning up the system and signing the Pendleton Civil Service Reform Act, which introduced merit-based hiring in federal jobs. If you've ever taken a government exam or applied for a civil position based on qualifications, you have Arthur to thank for that. Benjamin Harrison, too, is a name often lost in the shadow of Grover Cleveland, who who served both before and after him. Yet it was during Harrison's administration that 6 new states were added to the Union. He was also the first president to propose federal funding for African American education and voting rights in the South. While Congress blocked many of his efforts, he laid the groundwork for future civil rights movements. Even someone like Millard Fillmore, often seen as one of the least interesting presidents, played a critical role during the turbulent 1850s. As president, he signed the Compromise of 1850, a set of laws that attempted to hold the Union together as tensions between North and South boiled over. While the compromise was far from perfect and included deeply controversial elements like the Fugitive Slave Act, it delayed the Civil War for a decade, buying time, for better or worse, for the nation to prepare. These examples are just the beginning. There are others, like Franklin Pierce, who dealt with growing divisions over slavery, John Tyler, who set the precedent for vice presidents taking full presidential powers after the death of a president, and Calvin Coolidge, who quietly oversaw a booming US economy in the 1920s. Each of these men led in times when the nation was evolving politically, geographically, economically, and each left behind a legacy, even if it's rarely talked about. So when we talk about the forgotten presidents, we're not talking about failures. We're talking about presidents who, for various reasons, didn't leave behind a dramatic legacy that the media, historians, or popular culture embraced. Their stories were quieter, their personalities less flashy, their terms often short, but their influence real, tangible, lasting. By revisiting their stories, we begin to see American history not just as a tale of great men and heroic moments, but as a complex, continuous effort shaped by many hands, some loud, some quiet. These forgotten presidents may not have memorials on the National Mall or blockbuster movies made about them, but they made decisions that still affect our daily lives, in our schools, our laws, our government institutions, and even the very shape of our country. And maybe, just maybe, it's time we remembered them. Many forgotten US presidents introduced reforms that quietly shaped modern America. Martin Van Buren created a system for handling government money independently, laying the foundation for the Federal Reserve. James Buchanan promoted policies that led to the idea of free land for settlers, influencing the American dream. Millard Fillmore expanded the postal system and supported building railroads, helping connect the nation. John Quincy Adams pushed for public education and science funding, inspiring the later growth of public schools. Grover Cleveland enforced civil service reform, ensuring government jobs are based on merit, not politics. James Monroe's foreign policy became a long-standing US principle. Even lesser-known presidents like Zachary Taylor questioned the harsh treatment of Native Americans. All these early decisions still impact American life today, in education, transportation, government jobs, and more. They remind us that leadership isn't always about fame or headlines, it's about the decisions that echo through time. If you enjoyed this deep dive into hidden history, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more untold stories that shaped our world. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.